There you have it. Please subscribe. Welcome to another edition of Fire Up Florida. And we are fired up Jacksonville Jaguars style. And you know what? If you don't get enough information about the Jaguars in this show, then you can refer to me as Gomer Powell, who will say, shame, shame, shame. And I know the Diet Mountain Dew out there is kicking, so I wonder, am I going to get any sleep tonight? Get as much as I always get. Sleep, folks, to me is a luxury. And another luxury is the crew that I have for this show. What a segue to this. So we have the guy with the shortest name on the planet. And boy, I would have loved to have written your paychecks when they had them. You're probably getting a direct deposit now. And that's Kyle Nash. I can go ahead and have 8 letters for the man here. Welcome to your first appearance on the show, Kyle.
Honor, joy, and privilege. Great to be aboard with the Motor City Mad Math himself. I'm supposed to call you Scotty because we're buddies like that now. I'm not going to go full Scotty to body like my guy Chris Pirtle, but hey, good to be aboard. Good inauguration to the South Florida Tribune action here, man. I'm all about it.
Oh, man, I knew we had a lot of fun when we were up at TIAA Bank Stadium. I think that's what they call it these days, right?
It is.
Until another sponsor gets their hands on it. But no, I told Kyle I was going to bring him on. I may be bringing this guy on. I'll have more NFL talent on here than anybody could come up with. We got Kyle and another one, Travis Holmes, who's certainly asserted himself to be, as Jimmy Walker would say, Kid Dynamite. Am I loud? Good enough. Anyways, that's an interesting intro. Travis Sherlock Holmes. Okay, Chris Berman style, even though he likes bacon. Welcome to Fire Up Florida.
I appreciate you having me, sir. Especially on this glorious day. Talking about Jaguars. Oh yes, I'm in like swimwear. Let's go.
And the guy that's going to be getting a hell of a lot of work, man, is Chris Pirtle. Oh, Mr. Pirtle, I really feel bad for you because your airtime is going to go from 1 or 2 times a week now with everything that I got my bag of tricks where, as I always like to say, which is deep. Okay, so there you go, Chris. Welcome back.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. You know, I was always skeptical of people with only 8 letters in their first and last name until I met Kyle Nash a few years ago.
Well, I once worked with a guy named Howard Schnellenberger who had an awful lot of letters. And I mean, boy, you talk about a guy that had a boatload of letters. Howard Schnellenberger, I'm sure back in the day when they were printing out address labels, he probably had to buy a few. Who knows what they were charging back then. So, folks, if you haven't figured it out by now, we're talking all Jacksonville Jaguars. Had a great first act here on the Sports Exchange where we were talking about sports betting. Hope you'll have an opportunity to go that. This is the second half of our doubleheader. So, you know, let's set the table here. We're talking, you know, the NFL draft is on April 27th, but the Jaguars have done an awful lot leading up to this particular point. So we'll take it one subject at a time. I'll go around the horn, and we're going to start off with the man with 8 letters. Okay, Kyle Nash. All right, how much you think the playoff tile has impacted what the Jags have done in the offseason as we look ahead to the NFL draft?
Oh, I mean, certainly a lot, right? We'll even get away from kind of the technical part of it. I mean, belief, right? It was always the Jags vibe is something that they're going to try to carry into the next year, right? You have to account for that. Now, there are a couple of things that aren't necessarily a positive, and Travis will back me on this because he's heard me talk about it before. We might have even talked about it on the Student of the Game podcast. Bing! But Cam Robinson signing is something that's now getting to be a bit of a problem, something that's in the way, and he's a guy that may not be reliable for a full 17 games. So that's something that's kind of carrying over from last year that, you know, I don't know about Travis, but last year's draft, I was kind of hoping they were going to go offensive line, and then they made that that contract extension to Cam Robinson, which, granted, for a good portion of the season worked out well and did its thing. But as far as, you know, the lift and what other things that are going to take place. I mean, that playoff year, I think, also helped to expose some of the pieces that perhaps needed to be made lean on that. And as much, listen, I'm all about covering UCF guys and giving them positive press and doing all that. But it was time for shaquillegriffin and the Jags to part ways. I think this is one of those where both sides are going to be made better and all that, you know, so no one was surprised when that happened. A couple of the other moves. But I'll give the floor to these other 2 gentlemen because they could probably give you a whole lot more positive than I can too about the factor number 0 that's there in the receiver corner.
I can tell you right now, I've got a guy who's easily going to moderate these things if I ever lose my voice. I'll tell you what, Nash, we need to talk after this show. All right, Chris, go ahead. You heard the man.
I think the playoff run showed the Jaguars and its fans that, hey, this team has some pretty damn good players. And a lot of these guys, we need to make sure we can keep. One of them in particular, Evaningrahm, record 77 catches last year, record for a tight end in Jacksonville, a personal record for him. Obviously unable to get a long-term deal done, but they did make sure that he's going to be in Jacksonville for at least one more year. And the emergence of Zacjones in the second half of the season last year made all the difference in the world. It took this team, who was 3-7 at one point, to a team that finished 9-8 and obviously won a playoff game against the Chargers. So I think the team realized we had some pretty good players in Rayshon Jenkins, Evaningrahm. We need to make sure we can keep these guys around. The emergence of Zacjones is huge. They'll obviously have a contract issue with him that they'll have to resolve sometime in the future. But my takeaway from it, Scott, is they realized, hey, we got a pretty good team. We just need to continue to add to it.
Okay, Travis.
I think it's a good and a bad thing. Just to be clear about it. And I'm, as you all know, I'm the eternal pessimist. But this past season, I've been the Grinch. I've been born anew. I've been an optimist, weirdly. But I also I got to get back to home base just for a second. So, had the Jaguars not made the playoffs, I mean, to your question, had the Jaguars not made the playoffs, this would be an entirely different offseason. We will be viewing this with an entirely different light had we not come back against the Tennessee Titans. Had that, I don't know, that fumble from, what was it, Josh Dobbs? I think it was Josh Dobbs.
Yeah,
not been called a fumble, and we not returned that for a touchdown. All of a sudden, the Jaguars are out in the last game of the season. This is an entirely different offseason. It's an entirely different conversation. And you can even ask the follow-up question of would the fans even be okay with how this offseason has gone had we not made the playoffs? Like, these and all legitimate questions. We did make the playoffs, and I want to be clear saying that, hey, one play should not make the difference of how you build that team. Right? Like, that's really what we're talking about. The difference of one play changing your entire scope of how you build this offseason. That obviously should not be the case. Player evaluation is player evaluation. What they do is what they do. So I say all that to say, how this draft goes will determine to us fans how the front office and the coaching staff truly views that locker room, right? We've seen how they built through free agency, and it seems to be indicating that, hey, we're for the most part going to build through the draft. That's how we're going to do moving forward. That seems to be the belief. So if the Jaguars in the draft end up filling holes, and they draft a corner, they draft a starting corner, a nickelback or outside guy, and move Darius Williams to nickel. They draft a swing tackle in the first 3 rounds. They draft a tight end to take care of just in case something goes wrong with the Evaningrahm contract, negotiations, whatever it may be. Those are like 2 of the top 3 picks in the NFL draft. Right. If something along those lines happens, the offseason went wrong. I mean, just objectively taking a step back, that would indicate that to this front office, the offseason did not go as planned. Because normally teams that win aren't the teams that are filling holes in the first 3 rounds of the draft. Teams that wins are the teams that's picking best player available, and they're going to find a way to make this work, right? Like, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am with this. Like, I pray that this is their plan, and this is going to plan. We are good to go. This is what we believe in. This offense is going to carry this team, and in the draft, we're just going to draft best player available, maybe draft the nickel, pass rushers, just load up on defense, something along those lines, and I think everything will be hunky-dory, and we'll all be, yelling late into the postseason next year. On the off chance it's not, then that we drank the Kool-Aid a little too much as far as the front office is concerned, and we got some conversations to be had, some come to Jesus moments.
Well, I don't know how much discussion you do on this part of the show, but this is the part where you're going to get a lightsaber duel between me and my good friend Travers Holmes. But there's a little bit of that to where, of course, they have to go to the draft. We're also the same group, aka the media, that wanted to remind the Jaguars all the time how much money they spent on receivers. And then here comes Doug Pederson. Hey, I have these receivers. Chris mentioned the immersion of Zacjones. He's part of the
Yeah.
pencil whipping that would regularly happen. Travis's term, not mine. That would regularly happen by way of the Jaguars and all their victories. Had that single play that Travis mentions, to his point, not happened. We're focused on 6-game losing streaks. We're talking about the only victories the Jaguars had were when teams were incomplete, not only in terms of their, how you say, coaching experience, perhaps, or not only in some of their, let's say, poor decision-making in the form of the Cowboys and certainly the Chargers, right? We were talking going into the show about how that should have been 42-7 at the half, like Chris Pirtle was talking about, right? But moreover that, the teams that they got the big wins against, the Chargers and other groups, were teams that were had
estimated
weakness. Yeah, and just a pure pencil whipping by Doug Pederson. A lot of the games that they lost are ones they could have or probably should have even won. Need I remind the world how many turnovers happened to keep the eventual world champion Philadelphia Eagles from coming back in that game? What was it, 4 or 5, Travis? I don't remember off the top of my head, but I do remember they were down big at one point to, well, it was always the Jags, right? And I think that's where that belief comes from. We talk about one play shouldn't matter, but my friend, there are 49er fans who remind you of Dwight Clark and the catch. I'm just saying. But all of the above is this. You mentioned that they're not going to free agency. When you spend money like they did, how can you? You have to use the draft and get that cheap talent in. You know, I mean, I'm not rebuilding the wheel here, but I think we kind of knew that the draft was the direction they're going to have to go. And here's one thing I want to caution my pessimistic Jag fans. No, not just you, Travis. Take it easy. Is one other factor too that you need to account for. This schedule next season going to be pretty difficult compared to this past season's, right?
Well, here, let me just say this real quick. The audio version of Fire Up Florida can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Also, please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. We're getting there, and we value every one of you. Also, please comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Send topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com, and I will fit you with the right show. If you want to advertise, no problem. Call 954-304-4941. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. So I want to make sure I can get that in, because I guarantee one thing will probably not happen. I won't be losing my voice with this crew, that's for sure. And that's okay. And I have another co-host here named Kyle Nash, who'd be more than happy to lead this board. He probably will when it's all said and done anyhow. But no, go ahead and finish your point. I want to make sure we got that.
No, you nailed it. I wrapped it up, and I already know what Travis is going to say too, by the way. Yes, they'll be weaker within the division, but where you have San Francisco and KC both on the schedule out of division, that's a factor, right?
No. Go ahead. What'd you say, Chris?
The Bengals are also on the schedule too.
Oh,
agreed. They have 4 games.
He'll tell me.
Yes, the Jaguars have 4 very difficult games, and because of those 4 games, many people have the false, I would even call it, just objectively, it's a false belief that the Jaguars have a difficult schedule. It's not true. The Jaguars have, objectively speaking, based on win percentages from the 2022 season, the 5th easiest schedule in the NFL.
That are all different from games that are already decided. Sir, don't call false.
I can agree. No. I can agree with you.
Living.
I can agree with your general premise while also stating that the majority of teams that are the top 10 worst teams in the NFL, historically speaking, generally end up being in the bottom half of teams in the NFL the following season. There's 1 or 2 teams that can make that jump into the next season. But for the most part, the teams that are in that middle to low end of the NFL stay towards that bottom half, we'll call it. Right. And that's my underlying point. So the team that has the 5th easiest schedule, because they, obviously play the AFC South, it's more likely than not is going to have one of the top, 5 to 8 easiest schedules. Again, the Indianapolis Colts also have the 8th easiest schedule because they're in the same conference. It's like it goes hand in hand. So
yeah, that's why I meant it within the same division. You're probably right. And after the draft, I reserve the right to amend my statement to say Travis may have been onto something within the South, but the out of conference games, that's what I want to stress. Those out of conference games, listen, it's not It's not a Dallas Cowboys team that started the season playing out of their heads and coming in to toss the game away. That's what I'm
Well, let me just say this. After the draft, we'll bring this crew back here so you can do it.
Let Chris get his word, if you don't mind.
Oh, that's okay. All right, so let's go on. Let's go on to something else here. Jaguars owner Shadkhan said we cracked the code for success, referring to Doug Pederson and GM Trentbaalke. I think that was a pretty cool way of putting it, crack the code, because for a lot of years they were getting cracked. So with that said, okay, we got four other things after this. So I guarantee this will be the most enjoyable Jaguars show you'll ever see. But I know it. Joe Namath can make guarantees to win the Super Bowl. And if you don't like this crew, I guarantee you will after I keep pounding it at you every few weeks. So, all right. I'll probably take the moderating job with you if you lose your voice. All right, Nash, pick this one up. Cracking the code.
That's a bit much, isn't it? Like, can we observe more than 1 year of success and winning record before we start with this cracking the code jazz? Like, I don't mean to be this guy, but I don't expect, for example, the Indianapolis Colts, again, to the point we made earlier, Travis, that that they're going to be the complete unmitigated disaster that they were. Listen, folks, when you're going with Yosemite Sam Ellinger at one point starting at quarterback, you got problems, okay? So I'm leaving it at that.
Now he's in the nickname business? God, you're really good. Keep it going.
If you don't know, you better ask somebody, Scotty. Anyways.
Yosemite Sam Ellen? I didn't know that one, so I don't know. I'll just ask you. Go ahead.
I can't take full credit for that. I did get that one from a member of the Indy Intercept crew. So, but I do come up with plenty myself. I'll let Travis and Nastrodamus Chris Pirtle in the bottom here accommodate for those skills. But anyway, let's get back on track. It's all squirrel. Anyways, I think sustained success is where we start getting to that code cracking piece. Let's be clear. The Texans, okay, they're not really going to be relevant again. They're still rebuilding. I don't expect the Colts and Titans to come out quite as, how you say, facile as they were last year. Okay, I'm not here to tell you that Derrick Henry will suddenly be a 100% completely healthy human for an entire set of 17 games either. But I do expect a little bit of slight improvement from the Titans as well for them to put up more of a fight, meaning Josh Dobbs probably won't be playing quarterback, right? Little things like that are going to be just a little different. All the things will come back probably with the likelihood of being more difficult than they were last year. And even though I cite the Texans who ruined the halftime dedication, oh, poor Tony Baselli. Anyways, so like I said, there's a lot up. If you put up a win, if you go 2-3 against San Fran, KC, and Cincy, we'll at least have the conversation about cracking the code. But in the meantime,
All right, Chris.
Well, obviously, there's plenty of reason for skepticism with this franchise. It's a franchise that has only had 2 winning seasons in the past 13 years. Actually had a run of 11 out of 12 seasons where they had double-digit losses, meaning 10 or more losses, which is really hard to do. I think even Cleveland, when they were at the worst of their worst, it wasn't even that bad, even though they did go 2 seasons where they only won 1 game and lost 31. So I guess it could have been worse, but it was pretty bad. This time last year, and I can also see a lot of reasons for optimism, especially when it comes to what Trentbaalke in the front office has done. This time last year, there was no evaningrahm. There was no Christiankirk. And when Christiankirk got signed and they gave him that contract, me and probably just about everybody on here thought it was kind of a joke, or was a little surprised anyway, to see that kind of money doled out to Christiankirk. Well, you know what? That paid off. He had 86 catches last year, and he is a legitimate number 1 receiver in this league. Zacjones wasn't here. Foy Aluakhan wasn't here. Aluakhan is a tackling machine. That guy is just a monster. So, the schedule, if you're in the AFC South, I kind of agree, Travis, your schedule can't be that difficult. Last year, they went 4-2 in division. As they become a better team and a team with more experience, I would expect that record, it needs to go up to around 5-1 or 6-0 this season, because like Kyle said, those out-of-division games are going to be tough. San Francisco, Cincinnati, Kansas City, not going to be an easy road, but this is a good team, and it's only going to get better. It should only get better, and if it does, they should be able to at least hold their own with those teams like Kansas City and San Francisco.
By the way, good evening, Jeremy Ballreich. He appeared on the earlier edition of the Sports Exchange, a big contributor. All right, Travis, go ahead.
Jeremy. Yeah, I actually agree with what everyone's stating. I do believe that this is a good team. I want to be clear in saying that. I do. I believe that this is a good team. But the NFL is built on parity.
Yeah.
There are very many good teams who are drafting in the top 8 in the NFL draft right now, right? Like, so good teams don't mean good records at the end of the season. Some of that's just based on injury probability. Some of that's just based on coaching. Some of that's based on, fill in the blank, pure luck sometimes. I mean, you have, enough one possession games that just go the opposite way, and then they flip the next season, turnovers, etc. So all that to say, this time I got it right. Because that was Shadkhan's comments in October of 2021 when we talking about the hiring of Urbanmeyer. In case we don't forget, that was his comments then. And now we're saying let us not forget. Shadkhan at this current moment in time is not significantly different than his son Tonykhan. He's a hype man, and that's okay. That is his job. That is his role, and he is playing it well. Will I say, hey, that actually means anything as far as how the season goes, and as far as its true belief? He is doing and saying the things that he is supposed to do and say as the owner of this Jacksonville Jaguars franchise. However, he has put together a pretty extensive resume on the field of showing us that a historically bad ran franchise. Not because he's not willing to spend money, but because he's entrusted the incorrect people to run that franchise. Are these the correct individuals? I absolutely, just to be real, I believe in Doug Pederson. I do. I believe in the players that he's signed and drafted for the most part. I do. Do I believe in Trentbaalke? I don't know. That's a question mark right there. And I can honestly say, depending on how this draft goes, I think this draft has a much bigger, significant, like a much heavier impact on this season than many people will probably agree with, if that makes any sense. I think if this draft goes incorrectly, I think that may be the biggest issue in this. I think that turns this Jaguars team from being a potential Cincinnati Bengals kind of situation to maybe an Indianapolis Colts situation where they're a good, solid team that can always be in, the bottom 10 teams, but never can just get over that hump. And that's my question. This draft, unfortunately, but the way that we've done free agency, is going to be heavily uber dependent on this draft. And that scares me.
All right. Now, what I'll add to this whole thing is, number one, hey, if Shadkhan wants to feel good, there's no crime that the man can't feel good. Remember, he's taking them to London where they make good money off the London game, and they obviously perked international interest. I know they're doing a lot to upgrade the Jaguars facility, and the guy with his deep pockets committing to keep the team in Jacksonville when other owners probably could have moved it if they wanted to, because I believe it's the smallest market in the NFL outside of Green Bay. Let the guy enjoy himself and feel good for a change. I understand cracking the code might be a little bit too exciting, but you know what? In golf, they call it mulligans. I don't think he needs to have mulligans at all. Hey, I come from an area that hasn't had a whole lot of football success either, the Detroit Lions. And the last time they won the championship was on my birthday of 1957, but the only thing is I wasn't quite born then. I was born in 62.
All right. So I will say I agree with Shad. If next year the Jaguars are in a similar situation where we're in the second round of the playoffs, maybe even the AFC Championship or something along those lines, I'm all in. And I'm pessimistic, Travis. I am all in at that point. I just want to see something that has a small resemblance of sustained success and we're here. But I can't be the guy to support the guy who just said the exact same thing 1 year prior about the biggest train wreck in coaching hires that I've seen in recent history. That's all I'm saying.
Well, no, hey, listen, I cover the Jaguars. I got to admit some of their coaching hires might have been a little questionable, and that's putting it lightly since this is a family show. But the reality of the situation is, yeah, you're right. I mean, as I said to you before, let the man enjoy it. Now,
Scott,
again,
it's hard to get on board with his opinions when he just gave you an opinion about a year ago that Urban Meyer was such a great.
Well, we know that was a dumpster fire. Let's face the reality. Here's the deal, okay? When Doug Pederson tells Trevor Lawrence, okay, I'd like you to forget about everything that happened your first year, and the only thing Lawrence didn't have to forget was he got a paycheck and they cashed. No problem. Don't forget that, but forget everything else. And Trent Baalke obviously had a tough time over in San Francisco, but now he has a chance to get it right, even though a coach did not want to come here because of him. And as it turns out, it's probably the best move that never happened. And that's what I mean. It won't take a whole lot for Doug Pederson to get a statue there, considering what the expectations have been like. And, get to the Super Bowl, just like Dusty May, like we talked about, Chris, okay? And then all of a sudden, we might have some statues being carved out in one or two places, but go ahead.
Scott, if Shadkhan wants to feel good, he can think about the fact that he bought the Jacksonville Jaguars about 12 years ago and paid $775 million for them. And if he wanted to sell them today, he could get $2.2 billion, meaning he's profited about $1.5 billion these past 12 years and only produced 2 winning seasons. Now, where else can you suck that bad and get $1 billion, $1.5 billion in profit for 12 years? So if Shadkhan wants to feel good, he can take a look at that.
Well, I'll preface a boxing analogy that you guys will never, ever think of bringing up. But as Don King would say, only in America. Bingo.
Great.
How do you like that? A boxing reference here on Fire Up Florida. And by the way, Don King's offices aren't far away from my headquarters in Deerfield Beach. So I have to drive by that sign every once in a while. And I committed only in America, Don King. Am I a Scotty yet or Scott yet? Kyle, don't worry about it.
Oh, no, you're so plenty Scotty. I just want to let you know I'm wearing this hat so you don't see my Don King do. Anyways.
Oh, okay.
Oh, gosh. Well, Shadkhan is winning everywhere. I mean, the man, what is his net worth jumped $8 billion last year, was it? It's $8 billion. It jumped from $4.5 billion to $12.1 billion just last year.
Reality, Travis, a heck of a businessman. I mean, he's not rich because he's stupid. I mean, the guy knows what he's doing. Business wise,
I got you in business. Yeah, I'm like, there are some billionaires that say some stuff that have me scratching my head, but I'm like, you must be good in that one area. You must be incredible.
He's a businessman, and not only that, I still think one of his shrewdest decisions was having at least a home game out in London, because I know they make a lot of money, and they tell the NFL they want to be there, and the NFL lets them go out there. You know what? Let me say this before I turn over to you, though, Kyle. I'll never forget the time when I talked to Jerry Jones out in Arizona, and Kansas City Chiefs didn't want the Lions to have the Thanksgiving game, and Jerry Jones said, if I got anything to do it, they're going to keep it just like we, because nobody wanted it. Well, where am I bringing the Jaguars? The Jaguars are the first ones that broke ground in London, so there's no reason why they should never have it. So you go out there, you add more games out there, and that's what they've done. So I see a little bit of a comparison, but, as I alluded to moments ago, okay, many owners, if they had bought this team and they were having success, and they could have moved it. How many times have we seen franchise movements before? But Shadkhan was committed to Jacksonville. More power to him. All right, Kyle.
Yeah. No, hey, listen, all I'm going to say is Shadkhan can be as optimistic as he wants, because at the end of the day, his running of the team has led to a T-shirt sales for "This Team Makes Me Drink." Travis among them.
Well, that is my favorite T-shirt.
You guys do a good job segueing to our next topic, so we'll also stay on the Shadkhan kick here. Khan also said losing players in free agency is a measure of success. And coaches too, really. I mean, if they want your players, once upon a time, there was a problem where when Tomcoughlin was there was a culture issue. But now guys leaving to get paid, it's another story. It really, really is. Right. And more power to them. Let's face it. We all know the average NFL roster turns over like 40 to 50%. Chris, would you say?
Mhm.
So there's going to be a whole lot of roster turnovers. So we'll go from there. All right. So Kyle, back to this measure of success. Losing players. What's your take on that?
Oh, 100%. And that's not a Jacksonville Jaguar thing. I mean, that's a Super Bowl thing. How many teams is the Eagle? Forget not just the winners of the Super Bowl, mind you. Super Bowl 57, winners. They lost to the Chiefs have lost to safety, a number of defensive players, and I think there's some offensive player movement. Sure, that's what you expect. The Eagles are losing cats, right? This is a thing that happens. Now, granted, which cats they lose is a matter of how you say good GMing. Let's take it to that Giants group that upset Brady the first time. They lost at least a starting safety and I think another DB on top of that, but they still had the defensive line that scared the heck out of Tom Brady, so they maintained greatness in the meantime. Sure, Strahan retired, but obviously not talking about him. Punchline's this: absolutely, guys that have success do move like that because at the very least they have that higher price tag. They know the cost of success as far as how hard they work. So this is actually an opportunity as well for the good championship coaching culture to bring in the guys that might be valuable, more valuable in that they could get just as much, if not more production for less dollars. Gentlemen, we get reminded all the time that it's a business, and I think that piece is certainly an essential part to the business in question.
No question about it. All right, Chris.
Yeah, and it's not just in free agency too, Scott. It's the the players that get cut. I remember back in the late '90s when tomcoughlin, it only took him a couple of years to assemble a team here in Jacksonville. Only 2 years into it, they go to the AFC title game. And they had so much depth on that team, and it was amazing how quickly it happened. Only, like I said, in a matter of a couple of years. But running back, for example, James Stewart, Fred Taylor, Randy Jordan, Tavian Banks, they had so many good running backs. Obviously, you got to cut some of these guys. So there were a lot of teams that were waiting to see who the Jaguars were going to cut so they could scoop up the leftovers. So, yeah, it's an indication that your team is successful when when free agents are signing with other teams and when other teams want your leftovers.
Go ahead, Travis.
I think I 110% agree with everything these very, very intelligent members of the media have already stated. The fact that other teams want our free agents and the fact that we're even in those conversations discussing comp picks in Jacksonville. What? Like, we haven't had a comp pick, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in the last 13 years. Like one comp pick in that entire time frame. That's wild. And obviously that means that the majority of our free agents or our high value free agents are being signed elsewhere, and we're not signing very many high value free agents in here. But all of that to say, we have historically not been that team. And for the last, decade plus, we've not been very good. Also, we've been signing everyone under the sun. So it's a very interesting time in Jacksonville to be a fan of the team. It's just like, hey, what is this? What do I do with my hands? Like, is this happening? And there is a part of this, though, I want to make sure I at least mention. Very many free agents probably don't care when, as far as being signed here. Their main focus historically would be on the dollars and cents, right? But now we have this whole, NFLPA report. This is the first year of everyone doing it. The Jaguars got scathing reviews because of the issues with the locker rooms, rodent infestations, treatment of players, spouses, things of that nature. That I don't think that matters with the top free agents. But those things absolutely will come into play when you're really close to signing fill in the blank player, and they don't know much about Jacksonville. They haven't played in Jacksonville. All they know is what these other players are telling them. The same thing is happening with so-and-so team that's in the same negotiations. And when you get into that point where it's like, I don't know which way I'm going to go, or, maybe I want to go with this team that's had, longer success, or like Calais Campbell's perfect example. Calais Campbell and negotiations. Calais came in and took a trip with the ownership group. Had conversations. No contract apparently was offered to him at all, and he decided after all of his, going around the NFL to sign with the Atlanta Falcons, I believe, for $7 million guaranteed, guaranteed contract. And it's like, okay, so he was just trying to gauge the ownership group, gauge his feelings of it, gauge everything else, and piece it together. When you have tight negotiations and tight, contract situations like that, these things might come into play. Everything comes into play. And those are the things, if anything, that's my concern. Hey, crossing those T's, dotting those I's, trying to get the whole organization to be pristine.
Yeah, you know what? I could go along with what Khan says to some extent because, when you're have a measure of success due to winning, that's a good problem to have because then obviously the culture changed. I know one thing that happened recently was when Marvin Jones Jr. re-signed with the Detroit Lions. He went there because he liked the way the culture was changing and the way Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, and company were doing things. It wasn't the same team he left when Matt Patricia, as Jeremy Ballreich would say. It's a different story. You go back to a place thinking that things have changed and you could be a contributing piece. And Marvin Jones Jr. did a good job in Jacksonville. He had to go ahead and try to keep things calm in the locker room during the Urbanmeyer fiasco. But let's face the reality. With this particular market, the things that players should think about is, one, when you come to Florida, you don't pay state income tax, number one. And number two, you're the only game in town. So therefore, the whole fan base is all centered around you. There's no competition for the entertainment dollar. In this market, if they can even be mediocre for a year or two and then build up to success, this is a football market waiting to erupt. It really, really is in the heart of football country. So, but that said, we'll move on to our next topic edition of Calvin Ridley. That was a shrewd move too. They made it, a year ago? They gambled on it. He got reinstated. He's back. Trevor Lawrence is another target. Take it from there, Kyle.
Well, first of all, don't act like I didn't notice that dad joke, whether you did it on purpose, that you said they took a gamble on Calvin Ridley, but we'll let it go. At any rate, so with that in mind, listen, the whole situation, Travis, correct me when I'm getting this wrong, because I'm probably going to get a detail wrong in here just because there's a lot of moving parts. But this is basically a lottery ticket, keeping with the gambling theme there. This is obviously a lottery ticket opportunity, right? If they miss on Calvin Ridley, what is it, a fourth pick, a fifth round pick? I forget which one. But
the fourth round?
Okay, so it is a fourth round pick. So the point is, not a whole lot with a whole butt ton of upside. For my money, I don't think he goes back to full. He doesn't go full Calvin Ridley, but okay, let's just say he just goes to Calvin Ridley good enough to where they're only getting a second round pick. Can you, with confidence, tell me a guy who is NFL experienced and ready right now that you're going to get in the second round, first pick over, or second round overall? There might be that guy, but why waste the draft pick when you're going to go and need to upgrade several pieces of the defense, right? We've been talking about the corner position needing to be addressed. We've been talking about that sooner or later that the defensive front is going to need to get more pressure in order to win football games. You are playing Patrick Mahomes II in the regular season as well as Joe Burrow. You're going to need to affect the quarterback if you want either of those games. That's got to be something that's addressed. I know Travis keeps saying tight end, but listen, I think Evan Ingram will do nice enough. Sure, his numbers will go down, but that's because Doug Pederson will probably be pencil whipping him as a decoy. I digress. The punchline's this. The reason why I love the Ridley move so much is just because the risk-reward factor is so, lacking a better word, perfect.
Well, the bottom line is it's an everything to gain, nothing to lose situation. Low risk, middle round pick. Yeah. So what? I've seen teams give up a whole lot more than that just to come up with a guy that you hope will do well. And I understand
Odell again, Scotty. Come on now.
Yeah, no, I was getting there. See, you know what? Here's the problem, Nash. Okay, you gotta learn the Motor City Mad Mouth lesson that Chris Purtle, Travis Holmes. You know what GMGA stands for? Don't say nothing either, you two guys.
No, GMGA. I can't say I do.
And I made it up, by the way.
No, I'm at a loss on this one.
Great minds think alike, Mr. Nash. There we go.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. No, I knew I'd get you. I get everybody that's a newbie here on all the time. Yeah. Yeah, it's a high, to me, when you get a guy like Ridley for a fourth round pick, seriously?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
So it will move up to a third round based on playing time, but you have to assume he's not going to get. Yeah, you have to assume he's not going to get injured and something simple like that.
Well, they get a third round, fourth round pick. So what? How many great players have been drafted in the middle rounds? Hello, day 2, day 3 matter. And you know what happens in day 2 and day 3? Hidden gems. Oh my goodness, they do pop up. And if you don't believe me, ask Tom Brady, the biggest cliche from all the hidden gems on the planet.
I mean, I would be happy with Brock Purdy, but cool.
You put him in there too. Yeah, why not? Mr. Irrelevant became relevant, and we all found out about him pretty quick. And that's probably one cliche that everybody's all torn up by now. Mr. Irrelevant. All right, Pirtle. I know that you're going to be appearing with me on a lot of million broadcasts, just like these two guys. All right, give me your take on Ridley. And you know what? Before you do, okay, Calvin Ridley, believe it or not. I know the nicknames too.
Well, it's low risk, high reward, as you said, Scott. One of the things you left off about the list about Jacksonville and what a good destination it is. I know, Scott, you're always asking me, Chris, how do you have such a good tan? How do you always have a good tan? And well, I got to give a lot of credit to Jacksonville Beach. We've got one of the best beaches here in the state. So another reason for free agents to come here to the First Coast and play for the Jaguars. But, you can never have enough weapons. Look at the Bengals' three-headed monster in Cincinnati. The first year that they get Jamar Chase to join along with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, what happens? They go to the Super Bowl. They actually should have won the Super Bowl had it not been for some really suspect calls against that Cincinnati defense about a year and a half ago. They would have won the Super Bowl, but I'll get off that subject and back to what I'm saying. They got a nice three-headed monster there. Both Higgins and Jamar Chase caught over 100 balls last year. Tyler Boyd was close to that. I think he had around 90 catches. So I think you can never have enough weapons. We saw as soon as Zacjones emerged onto the scene what happened with the Jaguar offense and how much that affected the Jaguars. So you give Trevor Lawrence even more weapons, and you've got to feel good about what this offense could accomplish. And you got to feel real good about it if it's only going to cost you a third or a fourth rounder. The Bengals had to spend a first rounder on Jamar Chase. They had to spend the number 1 pick in the second round on T. Higgins. So luckily the Jaguars won't have to do that. And they can use their draft picks in other places.
Well, one of the reasons I ain't mentioning no tan up in Jacksonville, because I was there for Super Bowl 39. And during the game, it was like 39 or 40 degrees. That thing called a jacket came in handy. And I have plenty of places in South Florida that I can get a tan, even though Jacksonville does have a nice beach. And I've seen just about all of the state of Florida. But I'll still never forget.
You guys were, didn't mean to interrupt, Scott, but you guys were in the press box that night. I was down there with the masses.
No, I actually wasn't.
32-degree
weather. I was actually in auxiliary press box there. So I had to wear a jacket.
I had to wear a ski mask, so it could have been worse, Scott.
Well, I didn't wear a ski mask, but thankfully I did have a good jacket. And if you really want to know where I stayed, it wasn't in a hotel, it wasn't on a cruise ship. I had to make a deal with somebody in a rest area so that I can use their showers a little bit at a certain time. And then, I did a little bartering here with a couple of press releases, media guys, and they made them. And they were happy as can be. And I was able to take my shower a couple times. Is that too much information? No, why not? I mean, for crying out loud. It was an experience that I could talk about, and I'm talking about it with my 4 great friends here that I have no problem admitting I stayed in a rest area, didn't have a problem getting a shower, and you do barter, you do trade, especially when you have fans.
That's hardcore.
That's it, man. Fans come in handy once in a while.
A timeshare for the Super Bowl. Just ask me. All right.
Yeah, especially when they're in rest areas. Oh yeah, they all know what's going on around there. All right. Go ahead there, Travis, the man here. Calvin Ridley, believe it or not. Do you believe it or not believe it?
I think we don't have a choice but to believe it. I mean, based on all the reports of how I say reports, forget reports. Based on what we've seen, the Instagram videos of him, catching the ball and running his routes and training with Trevor and the rest of the receivers, it's hard not to believe it. And then you add to that the reports that he's out here running 22.5 miles an hour in his training drills and such. And again, that's you're getting up there to the Tyreek Hill's 23 miles an hour speed. I mean, it's hard not to be a believer in that guy, and you're putting that guy into an offense that is consistently pencil whipping the remaining coaches. Ding. Yes. Trademark. It's hard not to be a believer at that point. So yes, it was one heck of a late last second free agency move last year, and that it's sort of bought the Jaguars front office 2 off seasons, if that makes sense. Because now everyone's claiming, hey, don't worry about free agency this year, because that signing from last year. Ridley is technically this free agency because we're using our draft pick, so it's bought them grace, I guess, but better term. Yeah, it's bought them grace with the fan base, both last year because it wasn't going well at the time that they made that transaction, and there weren't very many other moves made at the time, and also now that they haven't made many moves, and everyone's like, no, but it's fine because we have the Ridley effect, and then no one's wrong necessarily. It's an interesting dynamic because we are basing a lot based on that transaction, and we really have yet to see him play. So it's going to be curious though, but it's a heck of a move though.
Okay, I got 2 more things I want to talk about. Number 1, let's talk about the expectations of Travonwalker, Trevor Lawrence, and Travis Etienne. Kyle?
Listen, I'll say this about Travis Etienne and Travis Holmes, the champion he is, has made a good point about Etienne and his wear and tear and how much he's been dealing with. But guys, I gotta love the approach that Peterson has with the running backs right now, in that they are a committee. D'Ernest Johnson, probably one of the most overlooked free agency actions that's going to make anything that happens to Travis Etienne's health less of an impact. Am I saying that he's not relevant? No. I'm just saying he can miss a few games and the Jags will be fine. D'Ernest Johnson, in my opinion, is a blocking upgrade, and he's a guy that can do it all, just like Travis Etienne. Maybe not quite as fast, but very versatile in his own right too. And there's that guy. Let's not be too hasty about looking over anybody else, but he certainly rounds out a core. And if you're 3 deep in the running back situation, I don't care if you're snooping around to try to get Connor in the field out there or not. You don't need him. By the way, thank you for that, Travis. But here's the thing. The point that Travis makes about Ridley giving grace to the front office, I completely agree with it. Here's, however, what's going to happen. The clock is going to tick faster on one Trevor Sunshine Lawrence. If he is not putting up numbers, if he is back to the ways of just falling short of those closer games, like you were questioning at one point last year on the student game, Travis, that's going to really, there is no, oh, well, you're dislearning, being mired in bad coaching your rookie year. There's another dad joke in there for you guys, by the way. So, with all of that in mind, Trevor Lawrence, I feel like this is you have to produce this year. You're getting anointed by even national media guys like Nick Wright and stuff, putting on wigs and stuff, y'all. You need to start delivering. That's definitely a big deal. Ooh, I made Travis write something down. And Travonwalker, listen, here's my thing with him. A lot of people are going to look for big sack numbers and big this. I don't think his effect is something that's thoroughly trackable through stats. I think he was drafted to deal with the fact that this is a division that today at least has one Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry in it. Now, are Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry both the guys that were as, prominent in their offenses as they were the day that Walker was drafted? Probably not, due to injuries and such. But I think that he's going to be somebody that maybe he doesn't get a second contract in Jacksonville, but he's going to be a good NFL player in general.
Okay. All right, Chris.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned now because I have now heard Trevor Lawrence referred to as Sunshine twice within the same week. I had a guy who was in the same car with me the other day calling him Sunshine, and I thought it was just him. Now I've heard Kyle Nash refer to him as that. Maybe I've missed this nickname the past several months. I got from someone else myself, Chris.
I've called him it myself. No, it's a thing.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know that. Well, that concerns me. I mean,
you want to call us from Waffle House? Will that make you feel better? I'm
just a little concerned. That's all I'm going to say. But let's get to Travonwalker. He's a University of Georgia Bulldog. He'll be fine. It's weird. Hutchinson was drafted second. Had a great rookie season. Obviously, stats better than Travonwalker. But I think this may turn out to be very similar to the NBA draft in 2004. I'll take you back in time. Dwight Howard drafted number 1. Emeka Okafor drafted number 2. Okafor has a ridiculously good rookie season, wins Rookie of the Year going away hands down. But it was Dwight Howard a few years later that would lead his team to the NBA Finals. And I think we could see something similar to that with these two. Now, it's got obviously a different story with football and basketball. A lot more players on a football team than there is on a basketball team. So will Travon Walker have that effect like Dwight Howard? Obviously not, because there's more players. But I think Travon Walker is going to be fine. But I am a little concerned that we're calling Trevor Lawrence sunshine.
Well, before I turn over to Travis, though, I will incorporate more of a personal note on this one. Okay, so bear with me on this. There was only one person that I always viewed as sunshine. It was my Aunt Judy, who died at the age of 75 of COVID-19. And I'll never forget, in January of 21, when I did her eulogy, we were dealing with cloudy skies. It was pretty cold out there on a January day. And right at the end of that eulogy, when we were going through the burial process, Sunshine popped up, and my wife gave her the name Sunshine. It was so appropriate. So, there comes a point where you can incorporate a little bit of personal things. We're all human. Sometimes I don't think I am. And my wife calls me crazy man sometimes because of my exploits on the road and among other things that she never thought a nice American Wisconsin family dealing with me. She deserves a gold medal for dealing with me. But, yeah, I know. Don't worry, Travis. Your wife is probably, she's probably glad she's got you instead of me. I'm a locomotive when as the old thing goes. There ain't no stopping me now. But whatever. And no, I'm not looking to be on American Idol, looking to win any singing contest. If I did, I'd break the Memorex glass all day long. But back to my aunt. She's the only sunshine that I'll ever have. But I never knew that Trevor Lawrence was being called sunshine. The only thing I'll say about these three is they're important years for each and every one of these players, and they were all highly drafted. Yeah. Obviously, Etienne, got hurt his first year and got a redshirt year, and probably a good riddance. Thankfully, I didn't have to deal with Urban, and Trevor Lawrence was told, forget about it, collect the cash, and of course, Travon Walker didn't have to worry about it. So go ahead, take it over from there. I love you, Aunt Judy, and miss you.
Hey, man. I'm not 100% sure my wife is always happy with me, but yes. Well,
your wife probably has a whole lot easier than mine does.
But she loves me, and she tells me all the time. So
and you and Travis know my other half, and Chris will get to know her soon. Listen, the PR people for the Jaguars are some of the classiest people I've ever seen. Going back to Dan Edwards and David Wolf, two of the best I've ever seen. You talk about two of the classiest people. These two are there. And the other people on their staff are fantastic too. I just know David Wolf and Dan Edwards the best. Go ahead.
So side note, I did make it to the third round of American Idol in 2006, just in the Orlando audition, just so you know. Okay. Your man got golden pipes, just not golden enough to get on TV. But anyways,
karaoke then. Enough with the talk. Let's make it happen.
I do karaoke all the time. What you mean? All right. Anyways, so we were talking about Travon Walker, Trevor Lawrence, and Travis Etienne. So with the signing of D'Ernest Johnson, this changes that backfield significantly. Like Snoop Conner, in my personal opinion, is fighting for a roster spot at best. At worst, he is one of those guys who potentially may just be in a game day inactive right now. So that's a curious situation there. Not to mention, we have to remember who our head coach is in Doug Pederson. The Super Bowl team was the team that had both, Miles Sanders? Well, no, was it Miles Sanders? It was, he had two running backs, and I believe one of them barely had over 1,000 yards rushing, and the other one had around 600. Was it Darren Sproles? Potentially could have been. I'm drawing a blank right now, but nevertheless, it's Doug Pederson backfield, who is historically known not to lean on one guy fully and to kind of split that backfield work. Same thing with the receivers, not to lean on one fully and to split that work and just kind of find the guy who's open. That's the way the offense is created. So Evaningrahm in his contract negotiations, I feel like is playing with fire, because I do feel a regression year is going to come simply because you have the addition of Calvin Ridley. I feel the exact same way about Travis Etienne with the signing with the signing of D'Ernest Johnson. I do feel like they're going to split that work a little bit more than people may realize. I mean, just like last year, it started off with James Robinson as the main guy and Travis Etienne coming in. I feel like this is going to start off with Travis Etienne, with D'Ernest Johnson just chipping away at that. And it's going to be just enough that it frustrates everyone, especially in fantasy land. And that is a big concern just because, again, this is who the head coach is. This is how he prefers it. So I don't know that Travis Etienne has to have this huge year. I think he just has to be the guy he is and just take his opportunities. And I think with the addition of D'Ernest Johnson, it's going to help, just catapult the team as a whole. Everybody just has to play their role and play it well. Trevor Lawrence, on the other hand, well, everything rests on this guy's shoulders. He needs to be the guy that we saw in the second half of the season, specifically, minus that one playoff game with the 4 INTs. We would love to see that guy for the rest of the season. Will he be that guy, or will he have a rusty first few games?
Right.
Let's flip a coin, and hopefully that lands heads every time. But nevertheless, Trevor Lawrence, we're hoping that he has an improved, sense of self, and that he does not have that sophomore slump that we're used to seeing from most, second-year quarterbacks. He is not a second-year quarterback, but he is the second year in the system. Right. And that is generally the way that it works for quarterbacks. Anybody who's watched NFL long enough, this is how this works. Second year in an offensive system, the other teams now have a full season of tape and nothing but time to watch that tape and break down what you do and what you don't do well. Will the Jaguars take another step as far as Trevor Lawrence and how he plays, especially at those crunch time scenarios where he's historically known for turning the ball over? Is he going to improve there, or is he going to be the same? And that will likely make the difference of whether or not this is an 11-win Jacksonville Jaguars team or a 7-win Jacksonville Jaguars team. And last but not least, Travonwalker. I do believe that he's going to be put with his hand on the ground more often. He may even be rushing a lot more from inside. And it sounds like they may even be having Devin Lloyd doing a lot more, from the outside linebacker rush, spot. So it sounds like they're the defensive coordinator. They're willing to make some small changes, some small adjustments to see about getting guys in better positions, because it took them the full scope of the season. It took them to the last 4 games of the season to truly start making some significant adjustments on the defensive line and the outside linebacker, to getting guys in the right spot. And some of that was simply because of injuries.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Final topic of the night. Kind of started with this. We're going to end with it. All right. We're going to lead off with you, Kyle. All right. What direction do you see the Jaguars going in the NFL draft when it's all said and done?
The one thing I will consistently say, and this isn't just, me piggybacking Travis and what he said in the 2023 Student of the Game real mock draft either. This is him. So many Jaguar media people, him, Mia O'Brien, John Shipley, everybody is saying corner for the draft pick. And this is one time where I am conforming. It makes a lot of sense to go best available when you're the Jacksonville Jaguars right now, rather than fill a need, because I don't feel like any of the glaring needs they have is something that they should concentrate just on need with that part of the first round. This is the good problem to have, territory Jaguar fans. You're late enough in the draft to where you're not going to get necessarily the top guy at a position, but you're going to get a high-level guy in a position that's deemed less relevant. I'm sorry, that's how I feel about corner, but that's because I'm a large man. Travis will tell me how wrong I am, because that's his house, and that's okay. Nobody's mad at it. That's what makes it a great show when he and I are on together. But the punchline is this: I feel like corner is that place where I believe there's a wealth of talent in this draft. At least that's what my draft people tell me. I'm a horrible scout. I just happen to know a lot of good ones. And then, and so with all that in mind, I think corner at that spot, whether they trade up a little higher or trade into the next round is another question, of course. But that 24 spot, I feel like corner is really a good value there.
Well, I should point out, first time in a few years they haven't had back-to-back top picks. So obviously, when you win, you slide deeper in the draft, and you're really in your choice. You have to see who just falls to your lap. All right, Chris.
Well, I want to put our quarterback in the best position to succeed. We've done that at the skill positions with the addition of Ridley, the emergence of Zacjones, what they did last year with Kirk and evaningrahm. And I want him to be in the best position to win, because right now, as we sit in April of 2023, Trevor Lawrence has as many playoff victories as Baker Mayfield. So I want Trevor Lawrence to be I want him to be more like Joe Burrow than I do instead of Baker Mayfield over these next couple years. And in order to make that happen, I feel like I need to protect my quarterback. I need to give him as much time as possible to fire it off to all those weapons that he has, all those weapons we just acquired, because if you can't get them the ball, then what good does it do to have them? I'm going offensive line as long as there's good offensive line available at that pick in the first round.
Won't get no debate from me. The Lions picked Penny Sewell a couple of years ago, and how did that turn out for them? And again, I make that reference because in addition to covering the Jaguars, I do a little stuff back up in Metro Detroit, but obviously Jaguars is where I spend the majority of my time. But every so often a situation comes my way, then I deal with it. So, and Penny Sewell has turned out, and they built the offense through free agency. So again, we all know that you use free agency to set up the draft. And that's what a lot of teams are doing. With that said, Travis, go ahead.
I actually agree with a lot of what Chris just laid out, and I agree with him with his solution. I don't agree with his work, and by that I mean like showing your work as far as math is concerned. We have the same end result, but I want the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence to be more like Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow. I don't want them to get there the same way. So there's multiple ways you can protect your quarterback. Like if we're going to mirror Cincinnati, then let's mirror Cincinnati or the Buffalo Bills or Kansas City Chiefs. Well, what do all those three of those teams have in common? In the 2022 draft, they all went 66 to 80% defense in the first 5 picks. Buffalo only had 3 picks in those first 4 rounds, so they ended up just drafting 2 defensive players out of the 3. Cool. Cincinnati and Kansas City all went 4 out of 5, all defense. 2 of the 2 cornerbacks for Kansas City and a defensive end also, which was a very good one. And so I say all that to say, if we're going to mirror those types of teams, that's more likely than not the way the Jaguars would end up going. All right, because that Cincinnati Bengals defense was a really good defense last year, and people just forget that. But they were made up on, a lot of free agents and 4 to 5 rookies. Well, that the Jaguars could mirror something along those lines. You draft a defensive end maybe in the second round. I say the second round because most of the ones who have a real good, a real robust pass rushing repertoire, most of those guys are in the second round. You have like a Nolan Smith, which is kind of that little undersized guy who may be a rotational pass rusher. You have the defensive end from LSU. You have a few different options there. So, and that's kind of how I feel like the Jaguars are a little more likely than not going to go. Maybe a safety and or cornerback in the first round, someone to play that nickel role spot, maybe someone who's a tweener like a Brian Branch, or something along those lines, Deonte Banks. And then in the second round, go one of those pass rushers to take that key, goodness gracious, Arden Key role, to take that pass rusher role. I also do believe eventually Smoot will re-sign with the Jaguars. But he has this whole injury situation, and you don't really hear about him negotiating with any other teams. So all that being said and done, I do feel that the Jaguars eventually will go all in on the defense. I feel like the majority of those picks will take the defense, and they're going to just say, all right, let's find a way to make sure that teams aren't scoring more than 18, to 20 points. And this offense is going to definitely just do what it needs to be done. And we have belief in
that. Great insights by every one of you. And I will say this right now, the first time all 4 of us have worked together on a show, but I assure you it won't be the last. And the one thing about all 3 of these guys is they're not only going to be on this show, but they'll be separated on other shows. Because when I find good talent, I make sure we find a way to plug it in any way we can. Because being our network, I feel it's important to have the most experienced, sound professionals that we can. And I'm very proud of what we've seen tonight with Kyle, as usual, Travis and Chris. What can I say? So with that said, what I'm going to do now is I just want to thank everybody for tuning in to Fire Up Florida. We're talking the Jacksonville Jaguars offseason. Before I turn over to you guys, I'll let everybody know how they can find the broadcast. And obviously, we'll be scheduling more and more shows as time goes down. So the audio version of Fire Up Florida can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. So, whether you're driving a bike in the car or whatever, that's how you can hear it verbally. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. So doesn't take much. Go to youtube.com, look for us, hit subscribe. We're good to go. You'll get all the updates that are available. Please also like, comment, share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Send your topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com and we'll fit you in with the right show. If you want to advertise, call 954-304-4941. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. So what a great show. Also, if you want to find me on Twitter, you can do so at Tribune South. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Scott Morganroth, if you want to connect with me as well. So with that said, Kyle, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Of course, it's an honor, joy, and privilege to come aboard here with the South Florida Tribune Group. Good to see my friend Chris Pirtle, who I'm used to dealing with at Vero Beach when he's not in Jackson. Of course, my man, the champion, House Holmes himself, Travis, doing his thing. Of course, one of my favorite, if not my most favorite, Jacksonville Jaguar fan. I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter at the SOTG. Find me on Instagram as the same, the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game, where you can pick out my esteemed colleague, Travis Holmes, picking for the Jacksonville Jaguars in the 2023 Student of the Game Real Mock Draft. So check that out. By the way, come April 27th with Team NBS Media, I will be your first night host for their draft show, but A7BN Sports will also be in the building covering the draft by way of Dalton Tinklenberg and my good friend Brian Paul. So that'll be a fun time all the way around. By the way, Travis, don't be surprised you get a call, some sort of that thing with that. But all over and above my coverage of UCF with the black and gold banneret and the XFL with the 3-point conversion at 3pointconversion.com. I do a lot of stuff, Scotty. But until next time, everyone, class dismissed.
Classes, man. I know how good you are anyways. You think I'm going to invite a stiff on this show? I saw you in the box. Had a good. Come on, Kyle. I told you. I'm glad we finally got it worked out. I plan to do a whole lot more with you and the rest of these guys. And Of course, I've always given Travis a hard time with his name, Travis Sherlock Holmes. Okay, so, it's one of those things. He's probably been called it a few times. All right, Chris, let everybody
All worse.
Don't worry.
Well, if you can't find me out on Jack's Beach, Daytona Beach, or Fort Lauderdale Beach working on my tan, you can look for me on Twitter at Vero Sports. You can look for me on Facebook under my name, Chris Pirtle. And if none of that works, just get in touch with Kyle Nash. He's got my cell number. He's got my Skype number. He's got my landline. He's got my secondary cell number.
He's not wrong.
Okay. And last but not least, Travis Sherlock Holmes. Travis like bacon. Go ahead, take it away, my friend.
Well, I mean, definitely you can find me on Twitter at TravLicesBacon. I guess I can call myself formerly vegan, the one vegan who loves bacon. Otherwise, you can find me on the beach working on my tan because yes, it's beautiful.
I wasn't going there with that. If you want to say that, that's entirely
coming to you. Man, yes, because I'm definitely not dark enough. But no, I'm absolutely. You can find me on Facebook, Travis D. Holmes, and I am here to have all the greatest conversations with anyone who wants to talk football. Just no homers. I'm just here to talk objective, real conversations. So I love you guys, and I'm ready to talk anything about my Jaguars or anything NFL.
And also, don't forget, Mr. Holmes, that you appear on Inside the Pigskin with Mel Farr as well. Mel Farr Jr. and whoever we bring on, Jeremy Ballreich's on there. And Kyle Nash, it won't be long before you're on there. Chris, Chris, he's already figured out. All I need to do is send this guy a job from this. All right, Chris, I need to hear, boom, that's all she wrote. Right, Chris? Not that. When you got veteran broadcasters. That's it. So meanwhile, I got to tell you, I've had a lot of fun on broadcast, but these guys here is like being in vaudeville. It's entertaining. I mean, who can enjoy being a moderator of three class entertaining guys? And I'm proud that each and every one of them are on this show and look forward to having more fun with these guys as well. So meanwhile, this concludes this edition of Fire Up Florida. And tomorrow night on our network, we'll have 108 Stitches baseball talk. Candy Ebling takes over for the rest of the week while I'm up in Tampa covering the Detroit Red Wings and the Tampa Bay Lightning up in Tampa. And then I'll be running around the rest of the week doing some football stuff, which probably don't real well. I'll be working with Miami Hurricanes, FAU Owls, and we'll go from there. So meanwhile, on behalf of Kyle Nash, Chris Pirtle, Travis Holmes. My name is Scott Morgan, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Fire Up Florida, Jacksonville Jaguars Offseason.